Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take good care. Outlander is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. The film starts with a spaceship's crash landing on a planet, this planet being the soil within the ancient ages. The collision stuns the area's natural life, and the ship ends up landing within the center of a lake. Two humanoid figures in progressed spacesuits develop from the effect. One of them makes a difference his companion get out of the water, and as he passes out, he has brief flashbacks of the past. Upon arousing, the spaceman realizes that his companion has passed on of an extreme chest wound. Within the remove, he listens a mechanical call, being a computer stranded within the lake. The man spares the machine and inquires in an obscure dialect for data around the planet they landed on. He too inquires around the whereabouts of other ships, but the computer tells him that there are no records of adjacent ships. After his dissatisfaction, the man plans for the computer to download and exchange to him arrangement of information approximately the planet, its civilization, species, dialects, and culture. Something troublesome and excruciating for the man to acclimatize. After that, he seems to pick up a moment breeze and hones his point with a dangerous weapon that overseeing to outlive the collision. At sunset, he makes a grave for his fallen colleague. The Outlander's unused mission is to survive the obscure region, an endless woodland, utilizing as it were his weapon. Within the look, he finds the dormant body of a whale another to an annihilated and surrendered town with signs of an assault by something other than a human. Taking note that he is being watched, the Outlander escapes, but is captured by a horse rider who thumps him oblivious and causes his weapon to urge misplaced in the waterway. Whereas passed out, the Outlander is taken prisoner to an adjacent Viking town that's encompassed by a wooden divider. In an awesome lobby, youthful Freya and her father, ruler Hrothgar, have a sword battle. Freya tells her father that she will not wed her suitor Wulfric, active to the king's position of authority. The fight concludes when Freya's father cuts her bare, so he chooses to recuperate her. Wulfric appears up, but his hypercritical state of mind as it were makes Freya detest him and take off. Hrothgar and Wulfric conversation almost how an adjacent town was annihilated, and Wulfric tells him that on their assessment, they overseen to capture a man, but he clearly doesn't have a place to any known town. Their prisoner, the spaceman, is shown before the villagers, astounded and derided by his clothing. Wulfric takes the man to a hut for questioning. He inquires the Outlander his title, and he says his title is Canaan. Canaan lies to them, saying that he is from an island within the north and is really there chasing mythical serpents, but the men do not accept him and think it was him who attacked the adjacent town. Canaan tries to elude, but the Vikings are as well solid for him. After being held, Canaan tries to elude utilizing a burning press bar, but fares sometime recently he succeeds. Freya shows up to go to him, as Wulfric asks. Hrothgar inquires Wulfric almost the Outlander at nightfall, but Wulfric tells him that he denies to coordinate. Hrothgar tells him that Gunnar, the chief of the devastated town, must be looked for out and clarified that they were not the ones who assaulted him. Wulfric wavers about this, as he contains a resentment against Gunnar for murdering his father, the previous ruler of the town, but Hrothgar explains that this was since his father was rash, and he does not need the same destiny for him. Back to Freya and Canaan, she inquires him if he was the one who attacked the town, but he denies it. Sometime recently continuing, Canaan breaks free, assaults Freya and his guard, trouncing him. Canaan tries to escape within the center of the night, and his arrange would have worked, but for the alarms beginning to sound and reporting in full assault. All the Vikings surge into activity, considering it's Gunnar taking Vindicate. They are shocked to see no one exterior, only to realize that the foe is as of now interior the town. An unknown enemy begins a killing and burning spree, a tentacled animal stowing away within the stables. Canaan begins chasing the mammoth, but his protect begins chasing him. The watch is afterward slaughtered by the secretive creature, who carries him to the edge of the wooden divider. Canaan calls the creature Morwen, the genuine dragon he was searching for. Sometime recently going for it, the Vikings discover Canaan, as it were to tie him to a shake. There, Canaan has flashbacks of Morwen assaulting his world and him deploring the misfortune of his people. The following day, a destitute town boy offers a few bread to Canaan, who acknowledges with doubt. The town men attempt to discover out who might have caused last night's invasion. They take Canaan to Hrothgar, inquiring him around the assumed dragon he is chasing. Canaan clarifies to them that the so-called Morwen too assaulted his individuals, and that it baits creatures with lights and after that murders them. He confesses that he brought the Morwen to the town, but fares sometime recently Canaan is executed. Hrothgar intercedes for him, claiming that he doesn't very accept his story. Canaan gets it that they will chase Morwen, so he inquires Hrothgar to go with them. The Vikings give him a horse and Freya a punch for the prior assault, and it is at that point that they leave the town to explore for the monster. A smith named Boromir offers Canaan a few mead, but Canaan spits it out. Hrothgar strikes up a discussion with Kanan, and he tells the Lord that in case they do not halt Morwen, the town will have the same destiny as his domestic. Wulfric declares a few bodies within the region and proposes to make undertaking bunches, but Kanan does not consider this arrange practical, considering it way better to remain together. Still, Hrothgar inclines toward to go in sets. Whereas exploring, a disjoined horse's head falls from the statues to Hrothgar and Boromir. Another couple finds charred bodies exterior a cave, and before long they discover something perilous. After hearing the shouts of terror from the couple in the cave, they all gather to go interior. They discover a bear and start a battle, vanquishing it not without a few resistance. Amid the struggling, Kanan conveys the ultimate blow with his sword. Hrothgar chooses to save Kanan's life after vanquishing the bear, allowing him his flexibility. The village celebrates the triumph over the bear with a devour. In the midst of the celebration, Kanan shows up again, only this time in the people's possessed clothing. To his shock, everybody invites him warmly, and he goes to eat with Hrothgar. At supper, the boy who gave Kanan bread shows up, and Kanan chooses to return the favor by loaning him the forceful sword that slaughtered the bear, on the condition that he ought to tell him his title, to which the boy as it were answers Eric. Hrothgar explains to Kanan that Eric's parents passed on, and they are taking care of him. Wulfric chooses to begin a diversion called Shields and challenges Kanan. A few men make a square course using as it were their shields, and the competitors must climb on them and after that grab their way forward. After arrangement of pirouettes, Kanan falls on Boromir, but Wulfric, far from deriding, helps him up, presently trusting him more as the individuals cheer their unused part. After leaving the extraordinary corridor, Kanan meets Freya, who much obliged him for helping her father on the endeavor. Kanan clarifies to Freya that it was not the bear who murdered her people, but the Morwen, which it'll return anytime. Abruptly, Gunnar's Viking gather starts an enemy assault, bursting into the town. There's a clash of swords between the two sides, with Kanan and Freya slaughtering a few of adversaries each. Hrothgar experiences Gunnar, who charges at him, thumping the lord to the ground. Sometime recently killing him, Kanan shows up to spare Hrothgar, but fair as Gunnar was pulling himself together to counterattack, his men tackle him and take him away, claiming they have misplaced and it is time for a withdrawal. Gunnar's gather clears out, but not without Gunnar reviling Hrothgar, charging him of being the murderer of his family and individuals. The town tries to recoup after the assault, and Freya clarifies to Kanan who Gunnar is. A long time back, Wulfric's father needed to assemble all the villages to plan an attack on the Franks, but Gunnar did not appear up, feeling this as a disloyalty, so both villages have reason to hate each other. Gunnar's gather plans on their ensuing assaults on Wulfric and his people. One of them breaks absent from the gather to pee, and he's assaulted by the stowing away Morwen within the lake. Gunnar's men start to fall one by one, accepting it to be an astonished attack by Wulfric. Gunnar is left alone before the mammoth, deciding to attack it without fear. Within the town, a few of Gunnar's men appear screaming and surrendering, needing to go and so as not to kick the bucket. In any case, Wulfric considers it's a trap, so he plants his bowman to shoot. Among the men shows up Gunnar, who survived the Morwen and presently calls for offer assistance. The bowmen fire, slaughtering a few men but Gunnar. Kanan asks them to stop shooting, and after this, he opens the village's doors for the foes to enter. Fair as Wulfric is around to hit Gunnar, everybody sees a series of blue lights catching a man within the timberland and at that point eating up him. The blue lights turn ruddy, uncovering the wild Morwen, who get away into the woods. Presently everybody knows of the creature's presence. There's grinding between Wulfric and Gunnar within the Great Hall, with the last mentioned claiming that hitting Morwen was like hitting a stone wall. Kanan tells them that battling the Morwen in open areas is impossible, so they must devise a trap. Wulfric doesn't believe the arrange and says that Kanan isn't one of them, so they shouldn't tune into him. Be that as it may, Kanan lashes out, saying that Wulfric is off base fair as he was approximately the supposed assaults by the bear and Gunnar. The two attempt to fight, but Hrothgar isolates them. The ruler favors Kenan's plan and says that what he prompts will be done. Another day they choose to construct a trap at the village's entrance, and Kanan demands combustible materials for a few reasons. They burrow a pit a few meters profound, which they cover up as in the event that it were fair another cabin. Inside, several poles are driven into the ground, filled with different oils. After everything is set, Hrothgar offers Kanan a position within the town, making him one of his possess. In the meantime, one of Final Night's casualties wakes up encompassed by bodies, as it were to be finished off by Morwen. In Freya's cottage, she and Kanan share a bowl of stew, and that's when Kanan has something to confess. His individuals, Kenan's society, are really vanquishers of universes. Upon arriving in Morwen's domain, they wiped out its kind with bombs. The remaining Morwens were chased down to have domain over the put. Turns out that Kanan was portion of a bunch of space colonizers, and in trade for being able to annihilate the Munwer's life, he and his family were given a put on the planet where they may dwell. A few time after the success, Kanan had to take off for an unused mission, but there he learned that one of the Munwers had survived and was stowing away within the ship's ventilation, the same Munwer that murdered the remaining populace. Kanan faults himself for that slip-up, but Freya tells him that he shouldn't be so difficult on himself. Moreover, she gives him her family's sword to battle Superior. They all plan for the trap, presently with Gunnar's offer assistance. The warriors open the entryways, and Wulfric and Kanan go exterior, waiting for the mammoth to sing. They couldn't see much, and since nothing was happening, Kanan tosses a burn into the woodland, only to realize that the Munwer is right before them. Out of no place, the town cleric shows up praying for the monster to take off, charging it may be a Lucifer's emissary. He's murdered on the spot brutally, so Kanan and Wulfric begin to run, passing the water trap and utilizing the shields as a stage to elude to the other side. Still, Wulfric falls into the water another to the monster. To create things more awful, the warriors near the entryways, clearing out the two interior. Fair sometime recently the bowmen empty their blazing bolts. Kanan offers Wulfric assistance by attempting to hold him through an exterior bring forth and overseas to rescue him in time to maintain a strategic distance from the blast. Whereas everybody is astounded by the explosion, a modern, littler Munwer shows up from behind, within the region where the ladies are covering up. To secure everybody, Freya chooses to assault. Her father comes to the protect, but a brief struggle against the monster takes off him defenseless. As in the event that weren't sufficient, the primary Munwer returns from the fire, angrier than ever. Wulfric and Kanan choose to assault together, but they are no coordinate for the creature. Gunnar chooses to assist, but he's executed in a streak by the primary Munwer, who then flees. Eric shows up to tell Kanan that there's a moment Munwer, so they run to assist Freya. Tragically, she is found holding her father's dormant body, who died within the fight. The entirety town clears out the taking after day, dreading another assault. Eric tells Kanan that he needs to remain with him within the town, but Kanan tells him that the place is no longer safe, so he must take off with the others on the pontoons. He promises the boy that they will see each other once more and after that say farewell. Kanan meets Wulfric, although the last mentioned is discouraged by the result, to the point where he does not feel commendable of the rule. Kanan tells him that they must battle the creature together. They both enroll a little bunch of men to go down the common well. In spite of the fact that the thought is crazy, it's the as it were way to discover the Munwer's safe house. Kanan inquires Boromir for unused weapons, this time with more considerable materials that he will bring. Kanan goes with Freya and Wulfric to the lake where his ship smashed to recuperate a few materials by diving down. Whereas he manages to bring a few things up, Kanan is surprised by a Munwer beneath the lake. When he gets to the surface, he sees that the pontoon they were in was annihilated, as they were finding Wulfric, but with no follow of Freya. Boromir oversees to fashion an unused sword, bigger and more grounded than any other. As of now arranged, Kanan goes down the well until he finds a metro cave. He holds up for the others, and they begin to development. Freya wakes up startled, finding herself within the monster's settle of bodies. As she tries to escape, one of the beasts finds her. Sometime recently assaulting, the monster recognizes gatecrashers, so it forsakes Freya to go after them. Kenan's bunch ends up in a cave with get to a magma floor. Before long they are attacked, overseeing to discover the Munwer's sanctuary and injuring the littlest example, but with overwhelming casualties, counting Boromir's death. Freya oversees to induce up, and they call out to each other. Just some time recently entering a dim put, Freya identifies peril, and the injured Munwer shows up, incapable to see her and presently made a difference as it were by sound. When they find each other, both the men and Freya make enough sound for the monster to attack, and Freya scarcely has sufficient time to dodge the crush. To get to her friends, Freya should pass through a hole, but it is as well little for her, so with no other choice and in a frantic act, they allow the sword to Freya, who murders the beast on the spot. They get together, but distant from having a warm gathering, they all see alarmed at the sum of bodies in the cave. When they heard that something was approaching, they take off, and the final Munwer sees its son's carcass, going berserker against the warriors. They all reach the conclusion of a waterfall on a mountain, another to a cliff. They attempt to elude, but the walls are as well dangerous to climb. Still, they attempt to do it, but Freya falls to be protected by Kanan. In the interim, Wulfric is assaulted by the more seasoned Munwer, and in a desperate act, he oversees to wound him within the confront. Freya remains steady, but the Munwer tosses Wulfric's body towards Kanan, leaving him alone within the fight. He re-enters the cave with his sword and oversees to cut an appendage of the monster, in spite of the fact that he doesn't hit it straightforwardly. Taking after the path of blood, Kanan falters all through, and just before being attacked by the monster behind his back, Freya shows up assaulting the monster, giving Kanan the perfect minute to thrust. However, the mammoth oversees to drag him to the edge of the cliff, and whereas Freya holds Kanan, he is stuck down by the Munwer. After battling, Kanan gets his sword and cuts off the beast's hand, so it falls into the void. They both return to the dying Wulfric, who inquires if the monster is at last dead. They affirm it. Wulfric offers Kanan the emblem that makes him king, regretting not having built up a great fellowship with him. Kanan remedies Wulfric, telling him that they are companions, and that's when he passes on. Kanan and Freya climb up the cliff, finding Eric and the rest of the town within the pontoons down within the separate. The two share a kiss, but in spite of everything, Kanan says farewell to Freya, telling her he has something else to do. She worries since she knows Kanan may never return. He actually goes back to his ship's destruction, uncovering that his spouse was in suspended liveliness amid the trip and that after the crash, her capsule cracked, killing her. Kanan says farewell and returns to his computer, which signals his comrades to pass by looking for him. Freya observes from the bushes as Kanan devastates the computer, clearing out his as it were chance to return domestic. In the epilogue, Freya describes how Wulfric and Hrothgar are buried, giving the most elevated Viking respects for their value to them, and that Kanan, once a stranger to the individuals, got to be their modern lord, with Freya getting to be his new wife and Eric, his adopted son. Freya concludes with the give-up Kanan made, of how he was sent by the gods, but at the time of his withdrawal, chosen to remain with them. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.